Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the increasing level of very rigorous reference checks, and I think quite invasive checking on the background, employment history, certification history, education history, whatever you like, the very, very rigorous background checks on straight white males for employment in certain companies, but there's a zero rigor reference check for so-called minorities. And so people coming from India who claim or any third world country who claim to have triple PhDs, it's just too complicated, it's too difficult, it's too racist to check on them. But an Australian-born or Western-born straight white male, then the checking needs to be done with an absolute, exhaustive level of rigor, and the slightest, syllable or full stop out of place, then you've proved them to be not only a liar but a fucking Nazi as well. So, but that same rigor isn't universally applied. Now you can see these sorts of things where the law is applied rigorously to straight white males, but not so to others, and where the prosecutors are very keen to go after straight white males, but not other people. Courts are very keen to fine and imprison straight white males for really minor misdemeanors, but are far more reluctant to imprison minorities for far more serious crimes. But anyway, what got me onto this, and I've seen it before. I've actually mentioned it, I think, in some previous essays. But what got me onto this was we do some work on and off this big firm, and they've been, I don't know, I suppose 50 to 60% white. They've certainly got a lot of brown people there. Many of those jobs being invented that don't really exist. They're kind of communist jobs where they're hiring these people and giving them titles, but they really don't do anything. They sit there all day, and which seems to suit these people. I'd go crazy if I sat there all day with nothing to do. But yeah. So then they started just not long ago, less than a year. This company started instituting a policy where they were going to rigorously check. They actually press released it, for goodness sakes, where they're going to rigorously check background. Someone claimed to have a degree in such and such or so and so. They were going to verify that they had it, and they were effectively going to the HR department effectively become an agency of private detectives to go and check people's background. And they would go back to day zero, year zero. I mean, if someone who was 50 years old, for example, applied for a job, and they made the short list or whatever how they work it at this place, then they would go back to high school, for fuck's sake, to check on this guy's credentials. The thing that made it an absolute absurdity, though, was that the rigor was only applied to straight white males, but it was the absolute pinnacle of super rigor. So if there was a guy that said that he worked for 3 years for company so and so, but really it was only 2 years and 11 months. Gotcha, you lying motherfucker. And this could have been from, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago or something. But so they institute this thing of rigor, or the guy said, he's got a degree in I don't know, accounting or something, but really it was a degree in finance where he majored in accounting, or the minor was accounting, and that slight differential, which isn't much. I mean, I wouldn't worry about it if I saw that difference. So is something that the ideological fanatics in HR who believe that all straight white males are Nazis anyway, the fanatics in HR can jump on that and go, gotcha, motherfucker. And so it's really a degree of rigor to eliminate straight white male applicants, as far as I can tell. They insist it's not, but they don't apply any rigor really to minorities. Similarly, they don't account for affirmative action degrees. people who are still illiterate in English somehow claim to have a master's in something where clearly they couldn't have it. It's an affirmative action degree. It's not something they earn. But those things were ignored. And similarly, I asked gently, because the HR director was in one of the meetings, it was that a while ago, and I said, well, how do you verify like people come from third world countries where you just can't pick up the phone and call this or that group or a university or something? These are places are horribly corrupt. How can you confirm that it was a real degree and not a degree that they purchased or bribed somebody for? And she just waved it away. It's just too hard to check people from third world countries or anything other than a first world country. So any brown or black person, of course, they come from third world countries. We just don't bother. It's not worth trying. We can't do it. And anyway, it would be racist to do it, or it would be, we'd be engaging in patriarchal misogyny if we checked the woman's credentials. So really, they just focus. They just 100% focus and with brutal rigor, by the way, on the straight white males. Again, going back 30 plus years. Now, typically, you'd only reference check back, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, maybe at the most. Like if someone comes to me and they're in their 50s or probably 40s and above, I wouldn't question. I'd talk to them and it would be obvious whether or not they had the knowledge that I needed. But I wouldn't go back to say, well, 25 years ago, did you or did you not get this degree? I mean, it'd be irrelevant. So nor would the degree be the pivotal deciding point of whether or not they got the job. It wouldn't be irrelevant, but can they do what I need and do they have that knowledge? That's the material point. So anyway, but what sort of got me onto this was I needed to go to one of their offices, or somebody did. I ended up being the one that went, but I needed to go to one of their offices, and they've got sort of, I don't know, an induction officer in the HR department who said, well, do you have certification sort of X and Y? And I actually did have it, but from a long time ago. I was in my early 20s when I got it, and it was for something else. So they said, look, it's not a necessary requirement that you have the certification to go and visit this particular place. Or to go inside the building. It's not a requirement, but we prefer that you had it. So I got it in writing that it is not a requirement. Now, I made the mistake of saying that I had this certification, but I'd have to go and dig it out from wherever, because I haven't needed to use it for decades. And so you've got it. So out comes the form, and there's a tick on the box. You've got it. You're claiming to have it. And so, and I said, but anyway, it's not necessary. Well, can you bring it though? And I said, well, I'll look for it. I'm not, agreeing to bring it, but as we've already established and that we have in writing, it's not a requirement. So I'm not required or obligated to bring this bit of paper or show it to you, this certification. So, it's not mandatory, and but if I can find it, I will. So that was, as far as I'm aware, that was the end of it. But not to these people, it isn't. You've made the claim you have it. We are now going to investigate that. We're not going to take your word for it, and we're not going to wait till the following day when you bring it, even though you don't need it. We've said in writing, we've agreed you don't need it. We're going to investigate whether or not you have it. Now, why would they do that? Why did they need to do it? I don't know. I was rather surprised. So I couldn't find it. So I thought, well, I better see if I can get a copy of this. So I called up the registering body there and said, look, I'm Billy Bob Smith. Can I, can you easily sort of email me a copy of this? And so I could bring it along. And I was doing it as a courtesy, not because I needed to, I had to, or it was mandatory. And so this is the inquiries thing. And bear in mind, the registering was some years ago. So, that's the second. Are you the Billy Bob Smith, the date of birth? Yeah. Well, someone else was calling up about that. We just an hour ago we had, and they were quite pushy, demanding whether or not what you were registered and did it. This did it. I said, you got to be kidding. Who was that? We can't say, but it was. So I knew straight away who it was. So I went back to them and said, what are you doing? Oh, well, you've claimed to have it and we're verifying you're telling the truth. Well, hold on. I just mentioned in passing that I had it, and if I could find it, I would bring it. But we've agreed in writing that it's not necessary, it's not mandatory, I'm not required to. I am under no obligation whatsoever to produce this bit of paper as being a condition of entry and so on. Oh, but you said you had. And so this this fucking fanatic who thinks that she's fucking Inspector Clouseau or Sherlock Holmes or something, going absolutely crazy doing this thing without my permission or consent or knowledge, and unnecessarily. There was no purpose to it. It was but all straight white males are liar Nazis, and we're gonna catch you out on this. And you have to be a little bit careful, because talking to another HR person a while ago, one of my colleagues, a younger guy, he types actually very well, and we were at a meeting together, and the HR department had a little checklist to go through of do you do this, can you do that sort of thing, as we're about to start a project. And he mentioned that she asked, can you type? She's got like a form there, and we're not sure how formal this is. Is it where's she going with this? And we kind of indulged her and answered the questions. And one of the questions was, can you type? And this guy said, yeah, actually, I'm a pretty good typist, and I type at, I don't know, 60 words a minute or something. And so she ticks a box, and I noticed a little look on her face, and next thing you know, we're getting a written demand that he has to attend a typing speed test to verify his claim that he can type. It's not even relevant to anything, but they've decided to do an ambush type thing there and go, you have to jump through our hoops, you have to climb across that. So anyway, I kiboshed that. I said, no, don't be silly, that's ridiculous. But as far as they're concerned, you've made it. So they it's an entrapment thing to some extent, where they say, well, you've made a claim, and we're going to investigate. It's part of this wider thing of as far as I can tell, of trying to dig information out of you and then run away to verify it without your knowledge or consent, and where that information, verified or not, is not even relevant to the conversation you're having, or the task at hand, or the legal requirements, or any of the obligations associated with it. And I see this happening, in terms of what I'm observing. I see this happening more and more, but it's something that's specifically targeted against straight white males. It does not apply to any so-called minority, which is really anyone and everyone outside of a straight white male. The other side of this equation is that there are large human resource departments and diversity departments that see it as their mission. They're rooting out the Nazis' mission to do this, to entrap straight white males into making an utterance, and then going with pouring vast resources and time into trying to disprove them or catch them out. And they do this with some glee and some delight and a deep motivation. And these are people who wouldn't be motivated to do anything. But when it comes to chasing down straight white male Nazis, then there's no limit to the resources and the level of energy and time they'll put into it. It's very sad, actually. It shows just how fractured, I think, how fractured our society has become. Now, this organisation that's doing these super rigorous checks that only apply to white people, the amount of new hires that come in through the door that are white, who've dropped to weight almost zero. Does this mean that white people are they're falsifying their CVs or something? What does it mean? It just means there's a standard that is so rigorous that if a white person puts a dot or a comma out of place, that they're disqualified, whereas there is zero rigor in checking on whether or not the Indian guy. Now, I know that I think I can safely say that every Indian that I've ever hired, and I'd say a lot that I've had some sort of dealing or association with, does not have the degree that they claim they've had, or any degree at all. They've either got a bribe degree or a whatever, but they don't have the degree. Certainly, every Indian I've hired that claims to have degree in computer science, someone has not had it, and I suspect has had no. Now they may have bribed, somebody to get a degree. That's I don't doubt that might have happened, but did they study it and do they know the first thing about cutting computer code? They don't, and so every single one of them has had a fake degree. So now that's 100% sort of success rate of fakery. So so as soon as they institute these rigorous things, then the number of Indians and so on jumps up. So like almost magically, they just that's it. So nearly all the new hires are recently arrived Indians that claim to have this or that degree, but there's no checking on them. So it's effectively, I think, effectively extreme levels of prejudice, but only against white people. You've been attached to today. Your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.